Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is News and Week in Review, covering news, games, the videos of the week, what I played, and of course the topic of the week. But first, this particular video is brought to you by Geek & Son, specifically the Archie gaming table, which is currently on Kickstarter. You can go ahead and check that out. There'll be a link in the description down below. And the Archie gaming table is bringing you a modular gaming table with little interchangeable boxes that swap in and out, adjusting whatever you want, whether it's a dice tray, whether it's a storage bin, whether it's removing them entirely so you have more space, coming in a variety of sizes, adjustable heights, whole bunch of different options. To be clear, adjustable heights means like different legs, so you'll have to do a whole system there, but there's a whole bunch of options, configurations, boxes, surfaces to the boxes, covered pads, and a whole bunch of extras that they've slowly been adding to the Kickstarter as stretch goals as things have continued to rise, so you can get basically more without spending more. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into the news of the week, starting off with the fact that the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund launched over on, well, not launched, but basically every year the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund has a auction over on Board Game Geek where people donate various things, people bid on said things, and then the money goes towards the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund. That is up over on, well, Board Game Geek, and I'll have a link down below. I'll probably be doing a full video on it later this week, both to spread awareness and because I think it would actually be a fun video too. It kind of usually has to be both. I like when things are good and, you know, add good to the world, but that doesn't help if nobody's actually interested. So I think it will be interesting, but we'll see. Anyways, moving on from there, we have Japanime Games and Middara combining forces, so to speak. I don't know the exact nature of what they're doing, but they are in some way working together to basically help Middara focus on Middara. And the company's name is not Middara. The company name is something else, but focusing on Middara and allowing Japanime to focus more on the distribution and ensuring it gets into as many hands as possible. Again, don't know the actual arrangement, but in some way, shape, or form, they are definitely doing something together to help Middara be more Middara. We have Grand Gamers Guild. Grand Gamers Guild put out an endangered promo card for Ukraine, so if you want to go ahead and support them, I believe all revenue, I don't know the exact nature of it, but some degree of something is going towards helping support Ukraine. But if you want to get that promo card, and also if you went ahead and purchased the butterfly scenario that I talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, then you can basically get them shipped together. So I think there'll be no shipping cost, or maybe reduced shipping costs, something along those lines. Similarly, we saw Gamewright. Gamewright put out for Happy City a Ukraine promo card as well. Same basic idea. In both cases, I don't know the exact nature of exactly what they are or are not doing. They're both to support Ukraine, but I don't know if it's the profits, the total, the this, the that. Don't know the details, but those are all, you know, things you can check out as you go ahead and get those yourself. Then from there we have a few Kickstarter updates, small little just link adjustments. Basically, we have a link for Anastyer from oh my gosh, I'm blanking, from Mythic Games. Jeez, completely blanked the name. I have Steamforge stuck in my head for some reason, just because I think I was just focusing on Bardsung. But anyways, we have Anastyer, which is going to be Mythic Games' next big thing, I said, seemingly. It looks very cool. Lots of fun art, miniatures, all that. We have a Kickstarter link for that game coming up, well, I mean, in the description down below. We have Batman Gotham City Chronicles, which in case you're waiting for that and wondering what happened, that was pushed from March to May 24th, I believe it is. No guarantees that there won't be another push. Very often there is this trend we see where once something is pushed, it gets into a category of sometimes being pushed multiple times. Not always, but there's usually two categories of Kickstarters. Those that put out a date that is locked in, that is firm, and everything's going swimmingly, and then something happens, and it's no longer going swimmingly, and at that point you're playing an update game. Which is why very often, you know, if you have to divide things into the magic category of just stuff, you might have like 70% of Kickstarters launching on the date that they say, and then once they push it off, you know, 50% of those that push it off might actually launch on the next date, and the other 50% keep on pushing it off from there. You just see, like, again, push-offs, once they happen, tend to happen, not always again, but more often again. Weird tangent and unnecessary, but the point is, Batman Gotham City Kickstarter coming May 24th as of right now. And then lastly, we have Explorers of the Woodland. This was a game that I saw talk about it in some way, shape, or form from the publishers, but it seems Matago is in some way partnering with them to help them run their Kickstarter. Looks like that one is running April 19th. I don't know if they're picking up distribution for the game, if they bought the game. I don't know the exact details. I just know that Matago was not involved, and now Matago is involved, and the Kickstarter date for Explorers of the Woodland is April 19th. From there, From there, let's go and head on into the game news, which is just another tangent of news, but more focused on games. We have a Great Wall reprint on Gamefound. That's going to be coming to Gamefound, basically, in case you're interested in the Great Wall, which is somewhere behind me. Oh, I moved it a little bit down. It's still here, but just got a little down. We got Dead Reckoning, got that new top billing spot. And by top billing spot, these are not paid sponsorship spots, although I'd totally be down for that. Anyways, we have the Great Wall coming to Gamefound. That's going to be a reprint. I don't know the exact details of what else they're doing. It does seem like they are in some way, shape, or form redoing the rulebook, because I've seen a file going around. I don't know if that'll be free to existing backers, if that's something you can pay for. Honestly, the Great Wall rulebook, in my review of the game, I did complain about it, but it was not, because I did a video last week about the top 10, or 2 weeks ago, top 10 worst rules in games, whatever it was, and I had somebody asking of, like, why I didn't include Great Wall. And the answer is, the Great Wall's rulebook did not in any way stop me from playing the game. It was not a very hard rulebook to get through. What was frustrating about the Great Wall's rulebook is that the mistakes that were there were stupid and easily could have been corrected. We're talking about low-res images of the general board without actually showing the components on them. We're talking about like a section of text that was like written and then immediately duplicated right after. Nothing in the rulebook prevented me from understanding the game. Could it have been better? Arguably, yes. Was it bad? No, not really. It's not talking about an either field situation where you needed another player to play the game. Rather, it could have been better, and coming from Awakened Realms, having had issues in the past, it's just frustrating to see that, and channel sponsor, they've been a channel sponsor, Gamefound has been a channel sponsor in the past, so I do have relations with them, but I'm criticizing them right now, so I don't know if that's necessary as a disclaimer. But anyways, it just felt unnecessary to have stupid mistakes in the rulebook. Was it that bad? No. If they never reprinted it, would it be fine? Honestly, yes. Am I happy to see it being reprinted? Yeah, that too. But it definitely was not a bad thing, at least not for myself. It just was frustratingly stupid in the mistakes that were in the rulebook. Anyways, moving on from there to, we have the Great Western Trails. The Great Western Trails, the expansion for the rails to the north, and if you're like, that expansion already exists, Alex, you're 2 years or 7 years or whatever number of years behind the curve. Well, first of all, in general, yes, but secondly, this is the expansion for the new printing of the game. So if you want to get the new expansion for the new printing of the expansion for the new printing of the game, well, that's coming out. We have Creature Comforts hitting retail April 9th, so if you missed the Kickstarter, well, first of all, if you missed the Kickstarter, I'm sorry, because the bits are nicer. But if you missed the Kickstarter, then you can go ahead and pick it up at retail April 9th in some way, shape, or form. We have The Hunger from Renegade Games announcing an expansion to The Hunger. I still have not played The Hunger. I want to play The Hunger. Haven't gotten it yet. We'll figure it out. There's a whole backlog of games I need to play, so it's not like I'm in a rush here. We have Birdwatcher from Oni Games. We had a few games from Scorpion Mask. They had Mott Poor Mott or something like that, which is a version of Ward on the Street. I've always loved Ward on the Street. It's one of the Ward games that has actually worked for me and stuck around. That said, I don't actually know where my copy is. I think my wife took it to school. She's a teacher. So I may end up getting my hands on Mott Poor Mott. They seem to have some rules, tweaks in some way, shape, or form, which I'm intrigued by because Ward on the Street is great, but like has some issues with it, like a can drag towards the end, whatever it is. They had a guacamole game. I don't know the exact title. I think it's something else, but some version of a game around guacamole. We have Monsterlands 2. Monsterlands 2 was announced. If you don't know about Monsterlands is from a company whose name I can't remember. Something Gate Games? Second Gate Games. I was looking over at Besieged because I know that they partnered with CMON to do Besieged. In some way, shape, or form, they want to bring Besieged back. I still have not gotten rid of Besieged, by the way, which is astounding to me because it's been on my games I should be getting rid of list for a very long time, but I can't bring myself to get rid of Besieged. I really like it. I just like other games more, and it doesn't get played. So yes, I should be getting rid of Besieged. It's been easily a year plus since I played it. Maybe. Someday. Anyways, that's a little bit of a tangent there. Monsterlands 2 from Second Gate Games is going to be coming out in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if retail or if Kickstarter. And then we have CMON putting out an RPG. Speaking of, well, CMON, we have CMON putting out some version or form of an RPG. I don't heavily look into these as well because I'm just not that interested in RPGs. I do talk about them here briefly so that you can look into it in case you are interested in RPGs. And that's basically the news, the games. Which brings us to the topic of the week, which is seeing the strategy in games. Which is probably not the most obvious title. Maybe I'll change the timestamp so something more obvious about what I'm actually talking about. Although I don't know how to make it obvious in a few words what I'm talking about. You see, what I'm talking about is the idea of there's a very fine line that all games walk in terms of the strategy on the table, how it's presented, and how it makes one game palatable to one person and not palatable to another. Which, as a starting definition, depends what you're looking for. So, let's use myself, selfishly, because this video is me talking, as a reference point. One of the things I like in games is the process of making decisions. Okay, I like to make decisions. That's what it is. I want to be able to actually make an interesting decision about what's happening in the game. I want that sense of player agency. I want that idea that in some way the choices I make, the pathways I choose, have an impact on the game. So you have to give me decisions. If you give me war, war has no decisions. Candyland has no decisions. You are going through a sequence of actions, but you have no agency along the way. Agency is the idea that you have choice. You are in control of your own destiny. So those things are bad. No agency is bad. The illusion of agency is also bad. It's just, it's not great. If we play war, my classic example is if I play war with you, but I've changed the rules. Now you can pull 2 cards and pick one. It doesn't change the game. You're always incentivized to pick the higher card. You have an illusion of a choice, but you don't have an actual choice. The only choice you have now is potentially trying to end your pain earlier by just closing it off. But that's the illusion of choice. Meaning in other words, the point being that giving players a choice does not actually mean that there is agency. You just gave them a decision point. You need to kind of obscure that decision point behind a certain degree of layers of complexity for that decision point to become interesting, and that's where the strategy starts to rise out of the game. But then on the reverse side, you can start heading down the opposite direction. You can start heading into Splotter territory, into Lacerda territory, into pick whatever specific game you personally found too overwhelming territory. And at a certain point, the game starts becoming complicated enough that it stops being fun. Sure, the decisions are now hidden, but they're hidden behind either just a degree of complexity that's just a pure headache, and again, this is going to be different for each person, or alternatively, that's not necessarily a headache, but it's just, if you can't find the trails of the pathway, then it stops being agency and it starts feeling like luck. In other words, if the levels of complexity of a game are so ridiculously deep, and I don't mean ridiculously in a bad way, I just mean that they're very, very, very deep. At a certain point, if you start making decisions just because you have to make a decision and not because in any way you are piecing together the pathways, parts, or aspects of a strategy, then you've gone the opposite route. You've now devolved into your own form of luck. Not the luck of rolling a die every turn, but the luck of you having no idea if what you're doing actually makes sense, if it's an optimal move, and you just feel like you're making random choices. So on the one hand, we have you literally rolling a die as your turn, every single turn. Let's make a little game right now. The game is get from here all the way to here. It's roll and move, and all you do every single turn is you roll the die, and you see how far you go. That is, functionally speaking, no different than having a heavy strategy game where you have to make a decision from one of 6 choices every single turn, and you have no idea, personally, on a personal level, you have no idea how those choices you're making translate into an outcome. You are, functionally speaking, from your sense of perspective, rolling a die and hoping for the best. The fact that you have a sense of agency doesn't matter if you can't piece together or see a strategy. What's the point of all this? The point of all this is that when I review games, and I frequently find myself in this aspect of games kind of have to be perfectly suited to me to hit my, magical brain spots that make my brain tingle with joy and like the game. And what does that mean? It means that if you give me too little decision space, then I start to drift towards, I could make these choices, but I'm just not seeing a really clear, fun, optimal strategy here past the obvious one of do this, do this, do that. It's not tingling my centers of strategic joy in my brain. And the reverse is true as well. Give me something too complicated, give me something too overwhelming, or in my case, one of my pet peeves is, just all the choices being tiny and minute in their consequence, and so it just comes down to small iterations, and it starts to drift the other direction. The decisions I'm making are still not fun, because they're still just not rewarding in the strategic centers. Everyone's going to have their own little band. It's a band, that's what it is. If you have the ends of the spectrum being here and here, everyone will have their own band of strategy that they enjoy. In my opinion, if this is 0 and this is 100, my band is probably around here, maybe from around 40 or so, maybe 30, maybe from 30 to around 80. That's what my band is, in my opinion, just making up numbers. Which is a decently wide band. That's half the band, 30 to 80 out of 0 to 100. That's 50 points of a band out of 100, which is not bad. But also, that's my own opinion, it might be different. It might be 30 to 70. Maybe I'm just really not playing. I mean, I like Lacerda games, I like Splotter games, so it can't be that bad, right? But there are games I have played where I'm just like, I just feel like I'm guessing here. I'm not piecing together the strategy, I'm not seeing where it lies. And I just find this interesting purely because of the fact that inherently when you're designing a game around that band, you're trying to design the game towards as many people as possible while understanding that you're going to miss a lot of people. Make the game too simple, make the game too complicated, and it's harder to pick up. It's harder to get into. Someone will play it the first time and potentially move on from it. It will never generate that buzz. It will never stick around. Additionally, you have to pitch a game to somebody. As someone who's making a game, you have to pitch the game to somebody. It either has to be on Kickstarter, pitched to backers, or it has to be pitched to a publisher. And that publisher or backer also needs to understand it. You know those games that show you on Kickstarter like 4 sequences of GIFs that show you how to play the game? If you actually get a decent sense out of how to play a game from 4 GIFs, and sorry for saying GIFs, that's the way I say it. But if you actually get a good sense of how to play a game from 4 GIFs, then the game can't be that complicated. Which is great because you're able to make a decision around whether the game's right for you, but it's bad because you're inherently limiting the scope of the complexity, which is just a tricky conversation in general. The flip side of that is make the game too simple, and when people get it, it doesn't have longevity. You play it once, you play it twice, you play it 3 times, you're like, I kind of feel like I've seen everything the game has to show me. And it's happened a lot recently, like in terms of games I've played, where I enjoyed the game, and the game gave me something within the band that I enjoy. This is the problem, because while 30 to 80 might be the band that I enjoy, 30 to 80 is not the band of games that I keep. The band of games I keep might be 45 to 75, somewhere in that range. It might be more narrow, more specific in terms of what it's doing. There are other factors at play. Strategy is not the only aspect of why I play a game. Theme will be an aspect, who I play it with, who else enjoys the game, what optimal player counts. There's a whole long conversation around why I keep one game versus another. But it's just interesting because these are all factors. Like, very often recently I've been playing games that are slightly outside my ideal band while being within a band that I enjoy. Very often, by the way, those will be 3.5s in my ratings, because they gave me enough tingly goodness that I had fun with it, and a 3.5 to me is a rating of a game that I feel bad if I don't play it again, but I often will pick other games over them. That's why they're a 3.5 and not a 4. 4 is where we start to drift heavily into my personal loving of a category. Drifting up to 4.5s and 5s is necessary. I just find it interesting, the idea that inherently part of game design starts off with you defining your target audience and cutting out a giant swath of people, and this can be true from your theme, from your player count, from any number of different aspects of what your game is, from the mechanics you chose. I just reviewed Dorian, what's it called? Kingdoms Rise and Fall Dorian. I just call it Dorian because those are the big letters, but Kingdoms Rise and Fall Dorian, I just reviewed that on the channel. We'll talk about that later in this video. I gave it a 3.5, which is my main ding against it, is the fact that there's a degree of backstabbery and betrayal that is prevalent in games like Moonrakers and Cosmic Encounter that I've personally found always take away from my experience in some way, shape, or form. They give me inconsistently good plays because depending on who I'm playing with, those aspects of backstabbing and betrayal work out differently in different games, which is fine. The part that I find interesting is you have other people, I think Beastie Geeks or whatever it is, who are like saying, this has backstabbing and betrayal baked in, it's not incidental, it's baked into the gameplay, and they love it. Which is a mechanic that inherently, by putting that mechanic in your game, you're slightly pushing me away from being the target audience, but somebody else towards being the target audience. It's fascinating, the idea of, I mean, it's not fascinating, I guess it's just logic, the idea that we all have different tastes, but it's just interesting to think about these conversations about the fact that my preferred band may not overlap with how a game was designed. My preferred band of strategy, of mechanics, of whatever, it may not overlap with how a game is designed, and that might affect my personal enjoyment of the game, while not making it a game that's a problem for you, making it a game that you might like or enjoy or whatever. Yeah, I don't know how to condense that into a little subject line, so I may stick with seeing the strategy as my timestamp thingy. Or something. We'll figure it out. Anyways, from there into what I played. The week in review, what I played, starting off with the fact that before we say anything else, understand that I have not logged half my games this week. So it's going to be a few things, and then me just putting down my phone and going from memory here. Again, as usual, I always say this, like, I estimate that I log 90% of my plays. Some weeks are better than others. This has not been a good week. Anyways, moving on to what I played. So, like, just an example, I have nothing logged between Wednesday and Thursday. Is it possible I didn't play games for 2 days last week? I don't think so. It's very rare that I don't play games. That seems wrong. 1 day without playing games happens. 2 days seems very rare. Anyways, let's move on. So, we have Luna Capital. Got into play of Luna Capital. Just a game I already reviewed on the channel. Really enjoy it. Still enjoying it. I still have issues with the art of it. I just feel like the art is But, I mean, the cover art's nice, but the component art just doesn't do it for me. But the game itself, very enjoyable. Got into play of Canvas with Canvas Reflections. I'll actually be re-reviewing that probably next week, maybe, I don't know. But I want to re-review Canvas. Canvas is one of the bigger drifts that I've had in my initial opinion versus my review. And that's usually not necessarily enough for me to re-review a game, but I'm also biased by the fact that my initial review was a playthrough and review, and so I'm more open to doing a full update review with Canvas and reflections and all that. So it's a combination of a changed opinion, adding the expansion to the review, and the first review was a playthrough with thoughts at the end. So expect a new review of that. My opinion of Canvas has consistently gone up. I think it's a really, really good game, and my first opinion of it was, it's good. And I've really gone up from it. Anyways, moving from there, we have Welcome to the Moon. Oh my gosh, I am really liking Welcome to the Moon. I'm not going to be reviewing it yet because it's basically a campaign play with like 8 different options on it, 8 different maps. I plan on going through all of those. But unless something changes drastically, I'm several plays in already, and I am really, really enjoying Welcome to the Moon. Like, I think it's like I would drop Welcome to Your Perfect Home in a second, if Rena lets me, and she probably won't. But I vastly prefer Welcome to the Moon, which is nice because when I played Welcome to Las Vegas, the second title out of the series of 3 games, I thought Welcome to Las Vegas was fine, but I preferred Welcome to. Welcome to the Moon is the best one yet, at least for me. And I'll have a full review later that my opinion might change because I haven't played them all yet. Although, I mean, I'll like the maps I like, so whatever. Anyways, we have Museum Pictura from Holy Grail Games. Finally dove into that one. I've been trying to for like a month and a half now. Really enjoyed it. We'll talk about it more. I'll have a review. I need to play it more, but we'll have a review at some point. We have Machiko 2 from Pandasaurus Games. I am okay with that game. Speaking of my bands of strategy, that's like a 20 in my bands. I don't love Machiko. It's not my go-to. Ricky, though, my daughter, likes it, and guess what I do like? Playing games with my daughter. So Machiko 2, we played that. Apparently my son now likes it as well, which makes sense. He's 6. It fits into his bands of strategy, but he played it for the first time with us, and he's like, can we play it next week? Can we play it next week? So yes, we'll be playing it again. We have Tarji. Got to play of Tarji. I was hoping to break out the expansion, but I was playing with somebody who hasn't played in a very long time, so we just played the base game first. Maybe we'll break out the expansion soon. I've had the expansion for like a year now, haven't played it. Really want to dive into it. We have the Quest Kids. Dove into the Quest Kids again with the expansion content. They have an upcoming Kickstarter, so we'll be talking about that at some point. I'm sure I'll have a video. It's going to be like a weird video because it's combining a review of the base game and then like a sort of review of the upcoming content. So combining a finished product and a prototype in one review. But I'll make it clear in the conversation. We have GPS. We got another play of GPS from Board Game Tables. GPS Sequoia Mountain Goats. Sequoia has left the collection from my original review way back in the day. I mean, a year ago. But then we have Mountain Goats and GPS that still see play, and GPS got played this week. Fun game. I still enjoy it. Plays in like 10 minutes. It's worth it for the playtime. We have the Bad Karmas and the Curse of the Zodiac. I got to dive into a play of the new Gemini. I'm trying to remember the name of the new god. We got a play of Gemini. Gemini is fun, promising. You can check out the video. It's going to be over on Quacklope at some point, but I really enjoyed playing against Gemini with the caveats. You can check those out. We talk about it at the end of the video, so if you want, just watch the review and watch the video, the playthrough, and skip to the end. But I will say, my opinion of the Bad Karmas and the Curse of the Zodiac has gone up, with the caveat that I still had issues playing against Gemini. So we can talk about that. We have Get On Board New York and London. I got a few plays of that. That's from Yellow. That's going to be a new version, a reprint of sorts of Let's Make a Bus Route. Never played Let's Make a Bus Route, but I did enjoy Get On Board. We'll talk about that when there's a review. We have Earth Under Siege Flashpoint. Dove into that again for a gameplay with Jesse and Devin over on his channel. You can check that out. That's already gone up. This is a gameplay after my review, which we missed 2 important rules. Like, I need to make this a video topic at some point. I hate playing games on camera. I do. Now, let me rephrase. I hate playing games on camera that I'm also reviewing. Because inevitably what happens is, at some point in the gameplay, you make a mistake, and then that could potentially invalidate your entire opinion. Which, by the way, sometimes it can. That's a real cost. If I play a game totally wrong, it can invalidate my opinion. A good example, Yucatan. We played Yucatan wrong. I was taught by the designers, so like I don't even know what to do with this. I was taught by the designers directly. I also read the rulebook, but one aspect of Yucatan I kind of missed over because the rulebook seemed to make sense with the way I perceived it as having being taught, but when I say I was taught by the designers, I mean that they taught me. I did it the way I thought that I was supposed to do it, and they never caught that I was doing it wrong. So like my first gameplay, I played Yucatan a few times in my group and with the designers, but my first gameplay, I played wrong, and I carried that mistake over to my other gameplays, even though the designers had taught me the game, they just hadn't noticed my mistake. It's not the end of the world. I think my opinion of Yucatan is still the same, but I don't know that for sure until I play it again correctly. So playthroughs on camera have become more and more problematic because, first of all, they can potentially actually invalidate my opinion, which is not great for someone reviewing games. But then secondly, and this is the one that bothers me more, because the first one is what it is. If my opinion's wrong because I played a game wrong, it is what it is. The reason it's more frustrating is because more often than not, it's not actually going to make my opinion wrong. More often than not, it's a mistake we're making on camera that is less likely to be made off camera, because off camera, I just check the rulebook when I have a question, because I don't have to worry about cuts and pauses and this, that. Versus on camera, I just charge confidently forward. This is a common thing, by the way. There are channels out there that take the time to do it right, and you should appreciate them. There's a lot of work that goes into that. Channels like Heavy Cardboard, Let's Go Before You Play, any number of different channels out there will sit there and pause and edit and do what they need to do to deliver an excellent end result that is perfect. And you should, again, heavily appreciate them. Most other channels, in my opinion, when they're doing gameplays, will have mistakes. Those mistakes will either be in the annotations, in the subtitles, or just the fact that they're there. They'll pinned comment, or it is what it is. On the case of Dice Tower, like, they just have the designer on the chat, like, you know, correcting them as they go, which is great. It's just that some people don't love that. So yeah, my point is, I don't love, like, for instance, the both mistakes that I did in Earth Under Siege Flashpoint were mistakes that were not present in my earlier plays. I just forgot about them because it is a complicated game with a lot of rules, and I hadn't played it in, 2.5 weeks, and maybe even more than that, 3 weeks, whatever it was, for a game that I'd only played like 4 times, and then dove into, 3 weeks later of an absence of rules, and then playing it on camera with not having the ability to reference rules. This is a longer tangent than was necessary, but the point is, I don't like playing games on camera. I did like Earth Under Siege, even playing it again on camera, but we made 2 mistakes, which made the game easier. That was a long, long tangent. Kingdoms Rise and Fall Dorian, and got another play of that. I played it a while back when when it first came out. I played it, but then they kind of put it on hiatus. Like, this game was kind of waiting on Kickstarter to launch for like almost a year now, so I hadn't played it in a while, and I wanted to get in a refresher play before I reviewed it. But I played Kingdoms Rise and Fall Dorian. Then we have several plays of Decorum, which is where my logging ends. I've gotten 2 plays of Decorum here. I've gotten 3 more plays of Decorum. Decorum is an upcoming game from Floodgate. I'll talk about it more, but the fact that I have 5 plays already should tell you something already. Then we had, what did I play? I played like 3 games of Crokinole last night. I played 10 Penny Parks. Already got our first play of 10 Penny Parks. We'll talk about that shortly. We have got another play of Age of Rome. I'm just trying to remember what I played that did not log. I got into plays of Skulls of Sedlec with the expansion. That might be everything. I don't know. Maybe more stuff, but we'll move on to the next segment because this is dragging on long enough. So those are all the things I played. Most of the stuff that I played. And I feel like I'm forgetting something. Machina Arcana. Got in a play of... Well, it's a middle of a play of Machina Arcana. It's set up upstairs. Anything else? I don't know. Either way, moving on to what the week in review, talking about the videos of the week. Starting off with Saturday, we had a Floriferous gameplay. Floriferous from Pencil First Games. 3.5 out of 5. A solid game. It's a gameplay plus final thoughts. It falls in line with most Pencil First games for me, which is generally a 3.5 for me. They almost are and always are in that category. I think Herbaceous was a 3, but Herbaceous has been growing on me, so maybe not. Has been growing on me. It's herbs. But Floriferous. Floriferous is fun. I enjoy it. I don't know whether I like Floriferous more than Herbaceous. I think... I need to play it more. But that's Floriferous from Pencil First Games. We have another video Saturday was Play This Not That between Marvel Champions and Lord of the Rings the card game. As people pointed out, a better comparison would have been Arkham Horror and Marvel Champions, and the answer there is I already got rid of Arkham Horror a while ago, and I've talked about that in the past as to why I prefer one versus the other. And this time, I actually hadn't played Lord of the Rings in like 8 years, so I want to talk about it now because that was currently on my table. Then we had on Sunday we had Where Are They Now? Just updated reviews and stuff. Bunch of small changes like Everdell, Core Quest, V Commandos, V Sabotage. I find more often than not the things that are changes are not often ratings changes. Sometimes they are. Where Are They Now is my video where I look at reviews from a year ago and then talk about whether they changed at all. Similar from the Dice Tower, inspired by the Dice Tower. But basically, I find more of my changes are not so much like, oh, this went from a 7.5 to, well, my ratings. This went from a 3.5 to a 4. More often than not, it's contextual changes. Like, this is still the rating it is, but it's actually left my collection because this replaced it, or this is still this, but like the expansions actually improved the game and I wanted to comment on that. So like they're just changes as far as how they've drifted in my collection, whether or not there's an actual number change. Later on Sunday, we had a Dead Reckoning unboxing, which was fun because Dead Reckoning is a game I've been looking forward to for a while. The sad reality of life now is that until I clear up some time in my life, I do tend to focus on things that, I play a lot of, here's the balance. It is easy for me to pull out games like Terraforming Mars, like Blood Rage, like Inish, games that I know and love to play them. It's also easy for me to play a game that I know needs to be reviewed or covered, or in some way is the hotness, gets more views, whatever it is. I guess Dead Reckoning would fall into the hotness category, so maybe I should play it. But in other words, it's a balance of playing games I love and playing games to help further the channel, because I hope to do this full time and that's relevant. But things often fall into the middle spot, where they aren't enough in my well-established love category and aren't enough in the new hotness category. Those games tend to not get as much love from me nowadays. Not no love, but not as much love. In fact, like Power Rangers actually probably falls in that category, and I'm hoping to play it, so we'll talk about it. But anyways, but that's basically just a small little aspect. But Dead Reckoning probably should get played. It would be good to get some coverage on the channel, and I really want to play it. I've only played it once, and I really enjoyed it. Anyways, on Monday we had 2 back and not to back. Fairly big week as far as, games. We had Malia, we had Tamashi, we had Ryuzen, a whole bunch of campaigns on Kickstarter, and Gamefound, although a whole bunch more coming this week. So we have a lot of big heavy hitters coming this Monday. Make sure to stay tuned for 2 back or not to back. Then we had on Tuesday, we had Kingdoms of Rise and Fall, Dorian, like I said, a review for that. 3.5 out of 5, a solid game, many aspects I like, but the primary aspect is it has a backstabbing mechanic that is not my thing. The fact that the game can completely, like your entire turn and plans can completely pivot based on whether someone helps you or hurts you in their team up. I just don't love that mechanic. Later on Tuesday, again, good game, just the mechanic is the main issue. Then later on Tuesday, we had a review from My Farm Shop from Pegasus Bill. Gave that a 3. I thought it was fine, but like Machikoro before it, I thought it was just fine. It's very similar to Machikoro in terms of the lightness and the dice rolling and the upgrading your tableau. Didn't give me the level of depth that I get from games slightly better in that category, like Space Base or Valeria Card Kingdoms. Again, none of those games are games I love. Valeria definitely is my closest to loving from that category. Then later on Tuesday, we had one more review, which was, we had My Farm Shop, we had Founders of Teotihucan. We had Founders of Teotihucan was the last one on Tuesday, which was a 3.5. Similar issues, just different. Basically, I played that game, really enjoyed it, gotten a few plays, but after a few plays already, it started to feel a bit samey, not a lot of variability to the experience, which for me, in games in that category, it's fine. Like, it's not going to be staying in my collection. My Farm Shop is leaving. Kingdoms Rise and Fall Dorian, I don't think I'm backing. And then we have Founders of Teotihucan, which is good, but is probably leaving my collection because it's just good. I just don't see myself playing it over other games. Always take this with a grain of salt. I have a lot of games, so I have the ability to be very, very picky about what stays and what goes. Doesn't mean they're bad games. I'd happily play Founders with you any day of the week. Anyways, moving on to Wednesday. Wednesday was, Tidal Blades, Jurassic World, and Ares Expedition expansions. Basically, it was a little bit of an impromptu. It was last minute. I pushed off a video to do it, but we just had like such a huge launch day on Tuesday that I couldn't not cover some of the big ones. So I put out a little roundup video of 3 of the new campaigns that are particularly big. I did not get the Casting Shadows one because it's not as much in my lane, although I am interested in it. We'll talk about it more. But yeah, talked about those 3 campaigns in case you want a short run-through of them. Some details, some controversy, some drama, some stuff like that. Not a lot of drama, don't get too excited. But anyways, that was 3 campaigns. On Thursday, we had board game upgrades and deluxifications. It's a regular monthly video I do on the channel. This one featuring socks and shirts and inserts, and an insert for Blood Rage. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy with my Blood Rage insert. Anyways, you can check that out. Then on Friday I had a recap of Gamma. It's my first time trying to vlog. The audio issues are prevalent because I'm using my phone in like airports and stuff. Not the best decision space, but short version is if people like it, then I may invest in another camera for vlogging, for whenever I travel or anything like that, because I really had fun doing it. Although the interesting part is the more fun I was having, the more I forgot to pull out my camera, which is good because I like being in the moment. But anyways, that was Friday's video. If you enjoyed that, let me know, because I would love to do more of it, but it will cost me not a small amount of money to get a proper vlogging camera and setup and ensure that I do it properly in the future. So yeah. Then lastly, Lastly, that was Friday. That was lastly. Today, coming up today, we have a review for Cartographer's Heroes and a review for the Lost Ruins of Arnak expansion. So 2 expansion, well, 1 standalone expansion, but a standalone game and an expansion review coming up later today. Next week we have a bunch of things. We have a review for Age of Rome, which I already mentioned. We have potentially a video on the fact that there's too many games coming out every single year. Potentially, I mean, not too many in a bad way, too many in a good way, but you have to be selective and you have to make decisions so that you don't get overburdened with everything. And then we'll have upcoming Kickstarters for April as well, which I should probably start working on because I need to get that video done. And then lastly we have the games on the table. These, as usual, are the games that I hope to table this week. I think that 3 of them are easily happening. We have Tenpenny Parks, which I plan on diving into again. We have The Dark Quarter, which I might be playing today. We'll see. This is the newest upcoming game from Van Ryder and Lucky Duck, a little bit Destiny's-ish adjacent. We have Machina Arcana, which like I said already, set up on the table, so already diving into this one. And then we have Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid. This is the one that is the least likely to be played, but I still hope to play it. I already finished the rulebook. The problem is I finished the rulebook like 6 months ago, which means I need to reread the rulebook and table it. I just really want to table this game. Sometimes I mean, there's lots of games I want to table at any given point in time. I have many rulebooks floating in my head. It's the ones that I choose to execute on that will be the question. In any case, until next time, thank you for being here. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.